Coming up on Network Africa. Opposition parties in Ethiopia's northern Tigray region say that over 50,000 civilians have been killed in conflict. Coalition of opposition parties in the Central African Republic pull out of the country's parliamentary polls. Head of South Africa's anti-graft probe criticizes Jacob Zuma's refusal to appear before the commission. Hello and welcome to the program. I'm Teniola Shoboale. We begin today in the Horn of Africa, where 3 opposition parties in Ethiopia's northern Tigray region estimate that more than 50,000 civilians have been killed in the conflict. But the Ethiopian government describes the allegation as unsubstantiated and politically motivated. The government adds that it regrets any civilian casualties, but there has not been a significant number due to the professionalism of the military. No official death toll has emerged since the fighting began in early November, when the country's Prime Minister, Abiy Ahmed, launched a ground and air offensive to house the region's ruling TPLF party. The United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees, Filippo Grandi, has been speaking on his visit to the Maiaini refugee camp in the Tigray region of Ethiopia. Mr. Grandi says the United Nations is on ground to help minimize and eliminate the impact of the crisis on civilians. Grandi is on a 4-day visit to Ethiopia.
Conflicts are messy. Conflicts impact severely on civilians. And whilst it is not in my place to make more political judgment, this is not my role, I have a responsibility to tell the government that we're here to help minimize and eliminate the impact on civilians of these situations. It is very positive that clearances were obtained in recent days to deliver cargo to the warehouses. Those that we spoke to that were coming from the 2 other camps reported issues of very much concern to us. They reported that they had been cut off, as we know, from support and assistance for several weeks. Some of them told us and told the minister that they had resorted to eating leaves because there was no other food. But they also spoke about, especially at the beginning, as I said, being caught in the crossfire that was at the beginning of the military operation. And they also spoke of infiltration of armed actors in the camps, of killings, abductions, and also some forced return to Eritrea at the hands of Eritrean forces present in the areas. Others reported that other refugees had chosen themselves to return to Eritrea given the insecurity prevailing in the area.
Now, Achike Chude, African Affairs Analyst, joins us now for more on the situation in the Tigray region. Mr. Achike, thank you so much for joining us on Network Africa.
It's a pleasure.
With this new information coming from opposition leaders that tens of thousands of civilians have died in this conflict, it appears the situation is escalating. What's your take on this?
Well, it's unfortunate because before our situations get to this level, there's always a process. It starts with a disagreement, and then, a quarrel develops, then a conflict, and then you have all-out hostility, war, which is exactly what we're seeing. And unfortunately, I think what has happened is that the political elites, both at the center, at the federal level, and in Tigray, have refused to do the necessary thing. They have refused to make the necessary compromises, and have subsequently are jeopardizing the lives and the interest of about 6 million people in Tigray, and then the lives of the soldiers who are going to be involved in this conflict. It is something, again, that could have been nipped at the budding stage. but unfortunately they failed. And the more the crisis continues, as the days and the weeks go by, it's going to get much more intense. And then you're going to have both sides digging in until it gets to almost a point of no return. And that is what needs to be avoided. This is a period that needs very cool head. This is a period that needs compromise from the political leadership, especially those that are involved in this crisis on both sides. It has not gone too far for them to recall the process, the conflict that is going on. And I think that they should make sure that to a very large extent, they listen to the intervention of especially the regional government, the African Union that has been involved in trying to ensure a maintenance of some semblance of peace.
If you remember earlier last month, we know that the African Union did visit Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed, but they were not allowed to visit the Tigray region. Overall, how well would you say the African Union has handled this crisis?
Well, I think the African Union is doing what it can do, but do not also forget that whatever they have to do has to be done on the basis of a consensus as an agreement. They need, it's a process of negotiation, and sometimes negotiations are long and protracted, even though we understand the urgency of the situation. And so they have been engaging with the government, but there is not so much that the African Union can do if the government or the other or the belligerent sides do not refuse to listen to entreaties by the African Union to ensure some semblance, of peace in that region. And so for the African Union to be effective, especially in the negotiating process, all sides to this crisis must also show that they are interested.
Well, it seems we are having some issues with the connection. We will try and reconnect with Achike today. But in the meantime, let's take a look at some other stories away from Ethiopia. A coalition of opposition parties in the Central African Republic has withdrawn from parliamentary elections after describing the process as a sham. This comes a day after the Constitutional Court rejected attempts to annul the first round of voting over allegations of fraud. The situation in the CAR is extremely precarious as rebels opposed to the re-election of President Faustin-Archange Touadera have been advancing on the capital, Bangui. The government accuses the former president, Francois Bozize, of backing the rebels, but he denies the accusation. Rwanda's national carrier Rwanda-CAR has launched its new route to the Central African Republic's capital, Bangui, amidst rebels closing in on the city. The airline says it will be flying to Bangui twice a week as part of efforts to recover from the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic. Rwanda's trade and infrastructure ministers were among dozens of passengers who boarded the inaugural flight and landed in Bangui this morning. In 2019, Rwanda and CAR presidents signed a bilateral defense agreement which saw hundreds of Rwandan troops deployed to protect Bangui a little before December 2020 elections. Rebel forces surround Bangui and control almost two-thirds of the country. They dispute the December presidential election won by incumbent Faustin-Archange Touadera and want him ousted. Well, let's return back to one of our main stories today. Now, I'm hearing that we have Achike today back with us. Mr. Today, it's a pleasure to have you back. Before the slight interruption, you were telling us what possible solutions could we have to this Ethiopian Tigray crisis?
Yes, what I was saying is that the situation has not gotten to a point of no return. So this is not exactly a case of all-out war. It's unfortunate that the Prime Minister of Ethiopia, Abiy, a Nobel Prize winner, for his efforts at ensuring peaceful coexistence within the African continent, is having the same issue in his own country, and he's not able to do that. To also walk the talk. The reality is that they need to also allow themselves to be engaged by the African Union. Unfortunately, I think what he's trying to do is to ensure that before there's any kind of diplomatic settlement, that they will go all out to settle this matter militarily. But the reality about such things is that sometimes people know when wars break out, but nobody knows when and how it is going to end. So he might be basking in the confidence that they have the wherewithal to be able to stem the tide. But what happens is that as the war drags on, all kinds of people get involved in it, even including foreign elements, and that makes it more intractable. So by the time he wants maybe the process of peace to start, it has gotten to a level where he cannot call it back. And that is why I believe that, he must do everything, make the necessary compromise that is needed to be made. Same thing with the other side, the people from Tigray. Obviously, what is going on has nothing to do with the people of Tigray or the people of Ethiopia. This is about, people who lost out in the political process and are not happy about what is going on. And so they are now involving the country and then an entire region in a crisis in a crisis that should have been avoided in the first place. But like I said, it is not too late. The African Union must be much more proactive. They must be much more forceful in the negotiation process. And then you would expect, especially the senior partner among the belligerents, which is the Ethiopian government that is the aggressor in Tigray, to do what it takes to ensure that there is a peace in that region.
All right, then, African Affairs Analyst Achike Chude, it's always a pleasure getting your thoughts and analysis on the program. Thank you so much for joining us.
It's a pleasure.
Moving on now, the Democratic Republic of Congo's parliament is set for a new speaker to vote for a new speaker today. The vote is expected to confirm the shift of power in favor of President Felix Tshisekedi in his power struggle with his predecessor, Joseph Kabila. President Tshisekedi's newly acquired majority, composing of 391 lawmakers out of 500, has lined up candidates for the top positions in parliament. The new speaker will replace Jeanine Mabunda, a Kabila ally who was voted out on December the 10th. The United Nations support to Jubaland has sent a high-level delegation to the southern federal member state in Kismayo to discuss issues ranging from primary health and well-being to economic empowerment and protection of the most vulnerable. Currently, there are 15 UN entities operating in Jubaland, and during the visit, officials from WFP, UNHCR, WHO, and FAO, met separately with various Jubaland ministers and officials to discuss specific aspects of each UN entity's support.
We have come to discuss with the President and his team the work of the United Nations in support of Jubaland in 2021 and beyond. Another example of the World Food Programme's work right here in Kismayo is the rehabilitation of Kismayo Port. World Food Programme has removed the sunken wrecks of 2 ships that have long impeded access through the seaway. Clearing those wrecks will enable humanitarian logistics services through the port, but also offers a significant opportunity to improve port services for Jubaland's economy. But WHO, in recent months, has also been busy helping with mass immunization campaigns. These include 3 polio campaigns to reach around 300,000 children in 11 accessible districts. And in October last year, the World Health Organization also conducted a measles immunization campaign here in Kismayo, a hotspot for measles, vaccinating more than 56,000 children against the disease. FAO has further provided renewable energy-powered ice machines and fridge freezers, which have allowed catch quality to be improved, reducing the spoilage of fish, increasing prices, and further contributing to food security in Jubaland.
Still to come on the program. Kenyan entrepreneur recycles plastic waste into building blocks. We'll tell you how in a moment. Please stay with us. Thanks for staying with us on Network Africa. A South African commission investigating corruption during the presidency of Jacob Zuma has faulted his decision not to obey summons to appear before it later this month. The commission, known as the Zondo Commission, termed Mr. Zuma's decision as completely unacceptable. Mr. Zuma is scheduled to appear before the commission from February 15th to the 19th, but on Monday, the former president said that he would rather go to prison than obey the summons. His defiance follows last week's order by a constitutional court compelling him to appear before the commission.
And indeed,
Now, the head of Liberia's anti-corruption body, Ndubuisi Nwabudike, has resigned. This follows controversy on how he acquired his citizenship. Mr. Nwabudike, who is of Nigerian origin, insists he's a Liberian and has denied any wrongdoing. But he failed to prove his Liberian citizenship to a Senate committee last year. President George Weah has accepted the resignation and thanked him for his service. The resignation will take effect from February the 26th. Sudan is warning Ethiopia against a planned phase second filling of a controversial dam reservoir without signing agreement with the stakeholders. Irrigation Minister Yasser Abbas says that the move threatens the safety of Sudanese citizens who live on the banks of the Blue Nile River. Ethiopia has held several rounds of talks with Sudan and Egypt, who fear that the construction of the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam will lead to water shortages in their countries. Mohammed Alamin, VOA journalist, joins us now for more on this story. Mohammed, thank you so much for joining us on Network Africa.
Thank you very much.
Just help us understand the reason behind this latest warning from Sudan on the filling of the dam.
Yes, you know, the dam, the building of the dam is already, according to many studies in Sudan, is already have very negative impact on Sudan in general. But you know, in the past, especially during the past regime of the President Omar al-Bashir, the position of Sudan, the stance of Sudan regarding this issue has been calculated and determined according to many, political calculations. So this is why Sudan has not made its position clear in this issue. But now Sudan is more independent. And put its interest in the beginning after the revolution that ousted Bashir in April 2019. So now Sudan is dependent on the position of Sudan is dependent on the scientific studies that is already there, and the warning is related to the dangers of the filling of the dam on the Ruseris Sudanese dam. That's only 15 kilometers far from the Ethiopian border. Also, the dam may threaten the life of millions of people, according to the studies that the Sudanese Ministry of Water and Water Resources and Irrigation have. So this issue is complicated, and this speech comes amid the context of the tension between Sudan and Ethiopia on the border between the two countries. So if the diplomacy is not working quickly between the three countries, Ethiopia, Egypt, and Sudan, maybe we will be in front of more deterioration in the region, and maybe instability in whole region.
But are there plans for further talks at the moment? We know there have been earlier negotiations to resolve this long-running dispute, but none have been able to provide concrete solutions. What are the demands from Sudan? Are there plans for further talks at the moment?
Yes, Sudan has made it many times that the African Union mediators and panel of African panel of experts have to get more chance to bridge the gap and to supervise wider consultations and talks with the different parties. But the two other countries, I mean Ethiopia and Egypt, have pass this and go to the option of the direct talks, and that's one of the main area of disagree between Sudan and the other two countries. So and we see now the Egyptian side sometimes blaming Sudan when the interests of Sudan in this point or that point become, I mean, in consequence with Ethiopia and the vice versa. So that means clearly that the Sudanese position is based on the interests of Sudan and not under any effect from Ethiopia or Egypt.
All right, then, Mohammed Alamin, VOA journalist, a lot to keep our eyes on there. Thank you so much for joining us on Network Africa. And finally on the program, a Kenyan entrepreneur has developed a machine that recycles discarded plastic waste into paving stones for use in construction projects. Zambi Mate's factory keeps plastic out of landfills and offers a cheaper alternative to conventional concrete paving slabs. Take a look.
Version like 2, 3.
Zambi Mati hauls the brick hard against the school footpath made using her recycled plastic bricks in the Kenyan capital. It does not crack.
Our product is almost 5 to 7 times stronger than the concrete, and this is because of the basic material structure of the brick itself. Our pavers, because they're made out of recycled plastic, and plastic is polymerous in nature, or rather it's thread-like. So therefore it doesn't have a lot of pocket holes, therefore making it less brittle compared to concrete. So that's why it doesn't break very easily.
Her factory produces 1,500 bricks per day with dimensions of 120 millimeters and 110 millimeters and depths ranging from 30 millimeters to 80 millimeters. The factory recycles high-density polythene, low-density polythene, and polypropylene waste plastic. Mati, a materials engineer who designed her own machines, says that her factory had recycled 20 tons of waste plastic after she founded her factory in 2017, adding that they plan to add another bigger production line that would at most triple their capacity.
We knew how to make one brick. So we needed to know if we had to bring this product to the market, we needed to know how to make 1,000 or 5,000, because one project cannot be just one brick. So after figuring out how to make one brick, now the next step was how to make 1,000. Making 1,000, we need machines.
The Ministry of Environment and Forestry says Kenya produces 600,000 tons of plastic bottles annually, of which 400,000 tons are used locally, with only 9% of it recycled. The low levels of recycling have prompted many environmental groups to call for a consumer deposit to be levied on plastic bottles, similar to the one some Kenyan companies levies on glass bottles. Mati says she created her factory after becoming tired of waiting for the government to solve the issue.
I was tired of being in the sidelines. You're just there waiting for someone to sort the plastic issue. You're just waiting for the government or the municipality or just someone else other than yourself. So that was the first driver. And then the other thing was It was almost out of sheer curiosity to see, can this happen? Because I had seen it been happening in different parts of the world, and I knew it could be replicated here in Kenya.
After Ecuador introduced a scheme where customers paid 2 cents per bottle in 2011, recycling plastic bottles shot up from 30% to 80% the next year.
And that's the program today. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Teniola Shubowale.